Hello there everyone, welcome to an overview of Malakai Makaisson of the Dwarfs. So I played through the initial turns, I got a feel for the faction and I drew my conclusions, and I would like to share those with you, so that you can of course plan your own playthroughs. In the end I'll give you as always the army compositions that I would try out with the faction overall. So without further ado, let's go and play with Malakai. So, for your short victory condition, you need to complete 4 legendary battles in Malakai's adventures, one of his mechanics. You also need to destroy the factions of the War Host of the Apocalypse and the Disciples of Hashut. And you also need to occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. Achieving this will give you +3 hero capacity for all heroes, as always, ensuring that you have a healthy number of agents or heroes in your armies without having necessarily to build so many buildings, which is always nice. Now this is somewhat average to a long short victory. Really, it may take you some time to achieve it, and you do start nearly surrounded by enemies, especially from the north, and well, basically surrounded. So that's why it may take some time. So for the long campaign, of course, achieving the short victory conditions: occupy, loot, raise or sack 70 different settlements, complete all legendary battles in Malakai's adventures, and destroy the legions of Asgoth, the servants of the Conclave, and Grimgor's Art Boys. If you succeed, hero recruit rank +10 for all provinces. That's always nice to ensure that your heroes are always powerful on the get-go. So this is a lengthy, long victory. So the only advantage is that it sets you up truly into going into the Badlands, into going into further territories. And the Chaos presence in the north might be a big problem though, but this is a good long campaign victory to proceed into endgame or into domination. Now, Malakai, he's a Slayer Engineer Extraordinaire. So he has access to Malakai's adventures, enabling powerful war machine and artillery modifications. He starts with Gotrek and Felix, that's so great. Upkeep -15% for artillery and flying war machine units, and recruit rank +3 for those units as well. So overall, he's a beast of bonuses, creating tons of fireworks in the early to late game. And with Gotrek and Felix starting with him, you can have already a formidable campaign. If you find yourself struggling, consider giving them to a second army. So Malakai can shine on his own, and Gotrek and Felix can take care of anything else, basically. In terms of climate, it's really not that bad. It's kind of good to bad, I would say. Considering your location and goals, it's not really that advisable moving towards the Chaos lands, but Norska, even the Empire Kislev lands, and then into the Cathay lands, yeah, that's something that you can take if you wish to go for domination. Now, following the long path to victory, basically, you shall see mostly good climate, which is great. Oh, let me turn this around. There we go. That's how it should have been. So I would say that he's still perfect for a nice domination victory, but a little bit dangerous to go into world domination because of all those red places. And for your starting location, it's a 3-settlement province. It's great. You have access to the sea, a little bit of it, so that you have a chance of acquiring some goodies here. You also have the sea lane nearby, which is always nice. However, the presence of very few allies and tons of enemies make this a very tough campaign to beat. You do have the mechanics for it, but for certain you should count on wars on multiple fronts, and you should be prepared for it. Now, typical expansion, of course, is to dominate the early enemy, go after Throt to avoid him later on, and then proceed into the Chaos Dwarf lands and against Archeon, basically. However, be mindful of Norska and other Chaos factions to the north, and even potentially Kislev if you're not careful. So you'll have to bear in mind that there can be treachery everywhere. So this is mostly the idea: defend on that location and proceed to invade Archeon and other Chaos Dwarfs. In terms of diplomacy, you're definitely part of the Order Tide. So Empire, Kislev, Bretonnia, eventually Cathay, all can become your close allies if you nurture them. Now, enemies are clearly all of Chaos in Norska, including Chaos Dwarfs and also Skaven, Greenskins. Depending on your path of conquest, you can even go against Ogres, or You can even go against the Dark Elves, really. So it truly depends on where you proceed, so that you're going to have different enemies, of course. Now, outposts should be awesome to obtain some cavalry from those friendly armies and maybe some of their single entities or flying units as well. So, the Forge. It's a crafting mechanic that allows you to build a variety of items. So you collect oath gold after battles and some buildings as well as quests, and you use them to improve your characters. And you have access to runes too, which you can grant to specific units to enhance their abilities or stats. In addition, you also have this option to recycle some items. So oath gold, of course, gathered by fighting mostly. Then we have the Age of Reckoning. It's a new edition. You have several tiers requiring each a certain amount of grudges to be settled. What are grudges? Well, basically stuff that is accumulated, like a sort of currency that is accumulated by your enemies, you know, from on their settlements, on their armies. And the more that you get, the higher the tier that you achieve, and the better the rewards, of course. Then after 15 turns, by the way, this is recorded on the previous one, but I'm recording the voice now. But after 15 turns, then you get the result is checked, and you obtain either the penalties or rewards given the tier that you arrive to. So it does encourage you to go against high value targets. Now, in terms of grudge settler units, these are more unique and special versions of the basic units. Now, these can be formidable in combat, and of course they're also very cheap to recruit. Note that they're not zero cost anymore. This is on the previous version, like mentioned. So, and of course they have differences between them. Now you have all the different grudge settler units located here. Now this is the Great Book of Grudges, and now you have legendary lords here, so you can confederate other dwarf legendary lords and their faction, of course, by spending some of those grudges. In addition to that, you have the legendary grudges, so achieving specific sort of missions. These are grand missions, as you can see, you know, take over the Clan Scryer and Skavenblight and help it, or destroy everyone from the Wood Elves, for instance, the Talsin and Argilon. So overall, it will give you some specific rewards, which is always good, including the Underway Network. So that's really a nice addition, and one that you can use for some specific objectives, right? So then we have specifically for Malakai's adventures. So in essence, he will embark in specific adventures, specific missions, basically, that can improve some of his units and provide him with some rewards. All of this is really cool, especially because you can choose to go on these adventures, and then you will have some specific rewards for specific units, which severely increase them. It's really a nice addition, and one that I like because it goes further into the decision making well into the late game, which is something excellent. It's something that I really wanted to see. Now, lastly, Malakai has a horde building of sorts. So with his Spirit of Grungi, our airship, so you can use him as a horde faction of sorts, and he also has an area of influence. You can see several buildings here that affect it, which provides other armies with benefits. So for instance, I can tell you that Malakai is a very good lord to go and try to conquer the Chaos lands, precisely because he can influence other armies, he can assist those other armies. So in terms of edicts, you have a control and corruption reduction one, you have the oath gold from buildings and income from all buildings, you have a recruitment cost and local recruitment capacity edict, and you also have a growth, less construction costs, and more tradable resources provided. So overall, very good and nice edicts that you can use. Then we have the army stances. So the airship traversal, note that Malakai has different ones, so this one doesn't have the negatives. The same thing with the airship camp. It does have enables replenishment and access to global recruitment and immunity to attrition. Then I have raiding, which also provides immunity to attrition, and the ambush stance, of course, and forced march. So overall, some great choices, perfect for the race itself. I'm just sad that there's nothing really concerning research, for instance, in the edicts. I'd like just to show you that different lords, so other lords other than Malakai, have different different army stances there. So with the typical negatives that you know. So Cracker Drag has a special building and a nice resource building for gemstones. The Silver Hall provides income, Thane recruitment and hero capacity and rank, as well as local recruitment capacity +1. Gemstones building gives, of course, income, then less upkeep for hammers and iron breakers, as well as some other benefits, and which is always nice to ensure that you recruit those units in this province. Military speaking, you need 7 military buildings for fully developing your forces, but you only need 4 to be built in the capital. There have been some changes since Thrones of Decay. Many units are now only requiring tier 2, making the dwarfs formidable at least until tier 3. Now, tier 4 has the Bear Slayers and different artillery units, as well as iron breakers and thunder barges, perfect for your elite armies. Now, in terms of infrastructure, you have the growth and replenishment building, you have the income and reduced construction costs building, you have an income and oath gold generated per turn, very good one, and we also have a control and less reduced corruption building. Perfect set of buildings to ensure you get to keep your provinces growing, happy and profitable. Now, as per Malakai's unique horde buildings, he can recruit most Slayer units at tier 3, and he can recruit most units here, but not all. As per infrastructure, he has the unit experience and rank, upkeep reduction and recruitment cost, airship recruitment capacity, and some abilities there. Campaign movement and attrition reduction, airship growth. So there's a lot of buffs here. It's perfect to conduct invasions, for instance, in uninhabitable terrain. In terms of research, it has been modified into 2 sets, the guilds and the clans. In essence, basically, guilds is focused in campaign. Growth, income, diplomacy improvements, etc. That sort of idea, that's where you're going to find here. Tons of stuff for income, which is always great, should you be requiring more. But for the clans, that's the one that I also like a lot. It has improved a lot in terms of how you improve your units, and this is perfect because right now, even though the tech is smaller than before, you have access to buffing specific units much sooner, such like the Slayers. You no longer have to wait like 70 turns to reach there. It's much better now. So overall, a very nice change in the rework that was conducted, and a very welcoming one, so that we can fully be rewarded by using it. As always, Lord skills, we have the yellow line, or the specific ones for Lord, the blue line or campaign, and the red line for the army. So blue line, we have replenishment rate here, and we don't have any upkeep reduction. We have attrition here. We only have upkeep reduction and research rate here in Inquiring Mind. So it is recommended that you at least go for a few of them in some of your lords. Red line was changed a little bit, still one of the best in the game, good compositions and alternatives without spending too much. Now, Slayers are all in one, and all the elite infantry is here as well, so it does allow you to focus a little bit on them, especially under Malakai, who buffs them as well, and that's really a nice addition. And especially the same thing happens with the new Demon Slayers, because they also have some abilities, more on that later on, some skills that they can select, which improves a lot the Slayers, and it allows you some good, nice Slayer-only combinations. It's very interesting, very fun to use. One special note is how you now have a Slayer hero that provides replenishment, which is great for these guys. Now, the red line skills, as you can see, all of them are here, and we have it mostly divided between ranged units and early infantry units and late infantry units, which is great. Only the Fire and Fury has like an artillery unit there mixed with some missile units. But overall, really good. I like the changes a lot. Bolt throwers, for instance, are now proper artillery. And here are the army suggestions that I will go for Malakai. Of course, you can use, note that I have Gotrek and Felix there, just to mention that, of course, you can use those. But if you choose not to, it is fine. So several combinations here, including some combinations of Slayers and another one with some Iron Breakers. But there's a ton of benefits from Malakai for artillery units and Slayers and gyrocopters and thunder barges. That's why I recommend using a few of them. Then this is the template for the Lord. It now has the possibility of having some physical resistance or some weapon strength, and that's why I'll recommend a couple of armies, maybe some lower quality army like the first one. Note the yellow numbers, it's the red line skills necessary to buff the whole army above. So overall quite cheap in that regard, so that you can get the Lord in much better ways in terms of a yellow line or the blue line as well. In terms of the Rune Lord, he has a choice there to provide some benefits to the army, and he can use more of the basic armies that I used to do. So with some Iron Breakers, Hammers, Giant Slayers, and some missile units. It's always nice to try some combinations here with the Grudge Rakers now, and yeah, definitely you're gonna have fun trying some epic combinations there. Of course, feel free to use some aerial units instead. Now, in terms of the Demon Slayer, focused completely around the Slayers, and that's what I would embrace. It's really fun. The last combination I would like to mention is just a completely Vanguard combination, and that's the idea. Maybe you wish to have a Vanguard-only army and see what you can do with that. Just be careful against whom you're bringing it up, of course, because you're kind of low on armor and defensive capabilities with that army. Worth to mention as well that all that I recommend is a melee hero or support hero and a caster hero, but of course you can choose any combination that you wish. Overall, these combinations are just based on trying to get as much variety as possible so that you can, it's something that brings me the fun part in the game, trying some different combinations, some weaker units here, and seeing how well they work in the game. So Malakai's unique mechanics really help combat the mid to late game decision-making situations that I spoke about previously on a video. So you will always have something to do, either one more adventure or one victory condition goal to achieve, or maybe just a legendary grudge while you're on your way to your own goals, the goals that you set up for the campaign. Maybe what you want to do is one of these legendary grudges. Maybe you want to achieve them all. Who knows? Adding to this, the unique location creates a lot of challenges, especially about what are you going to do with all the chaos enemies around. Are you going to defend? Are you going to be aggressive? That is really up to you. If you find yourself struggling, especially early game, consider the option of changing Gotrek and Felix to a second army so they can shine there. And Malakai, he can keep fighting with his airship and his slayers, he can do just fine. Now, the army has changed a little bit. From a slow and cumbersome army to a much faster with more options, so it's great to modify heavily the playstyle of the Dwarfs. Charging with the Dwarfs is now a possibility, really, with the faster units. Still, your army consists of great infantry, great missiles and artillery, good flyers, with the Thunder Barge being OP, no cavalry, and specific rune magic. Replenishment is now great, including some mechanics, some Lord skills, and Slayer hero, so it should be still a decent combination to try domination with. Now, it's time to get to the workshop and engineer your way to victory. Bye-bye.